thank you so much for joining me today on the Soul Call with Kelly B. I'm delighted to have you here. Could you please introduce yourself and your work to the audience here, our viewers and listeners who are tuning in to today's episode?
Yeah, sure. Well, I kind of woke up in the early 90s, was on a search, joined a spiritual organization, became a director of it for 13 years. In that time, I was kind of training and looking and also hosting lots of spiritual authors. And then I left there in 2010, had a dark night of the soul for a bit, and then came out the other side and started my own work, what I'm doing now, which is the Soul Matrix. I'm a social media tart, I call myself.
I love that.
I'm on YouTube. I've got nearly 167,000 followers there on my main channel. I've got a website, the Soul Matrix, and I really part of my work is to create a resource for a lot of people who are waking up, ascending. So there's a vast load of resources there for people to check out. So do check them out and see if they resonate. So that's me briefly. I'm born in London, living in Brighton.
Amazing. What a journey. And honestly, I just want to reinforce, we had a brief chat before I press record, and I want to just reinforce how much of an impact that you've had on me and my awakening journey. So we're always evolving as souls, as we know, but my conscious awakening, I would say, started probably at 9/11, if I'm being honest, when I really started to recognize that things weren't right in the world. They didn't feel right in the world. And so I started to explore online. So I became a bit of an online tart myself and finding information in any way that I could, that things that resonated with my heart. And that was where I discovered yourself. So your YouTube channel is now huge. I mean, 167,000 subscribers is incredible. I can't quite remember the year that I discovered you and your work, Steve, but your meditations were really so impactful, so profoundly impactful in my journey to really allow me that opportunity to deepen into knowing what my truth was and what felt right for me in my inner world so that I can make better sense of this holographic reality out
Oh,
here. So I wanted to start off by thanking you so, so much, first and foremost, because I still pinch myself. I can't believe I'm actually sitting here today as a podcast host. I never ever thought that would ever happen.
that's great.
I've got my own membership where I'm now leading guided visualizations and meditations myself. But I would love if you could share what was the impetus for you coming out, so to speak, publicly and going onto social media? What was that calling for you like? Why did you start there?
I think the calling had always been to assist as many people as possible to find the spiritual path for themselves. So alternatives, we put on all of these vast array of workshops and talks, and really the aim was to let people find their own path. And there was loads of teachers, so I was kind of a promoter of all of this. And then when I left there, I went through the dark night of the soul. When I came out the other side, 6 years, which was very difficult because all of my connections switched off, all of my intuition stopped. So it was a very difficult 6 years. And when I woke up one morning, sometime in 2016, early on, I think in the year, a voice came in my mind, and it was like those voices again. The guide's like, "Hey, there's a guide speaking." It wasn't my voice, and the guide was saying to me, "Okay, now it's time to you to teach about starseeds and ascension." There was no kind of, welcome back, glad you're out. It was all right, get to work, do it. This is what you're here for. And I was like, oh, all right. Well, I kind of fell into it. Like, am I going to do this? I was already considered a bit weird by my children and my grandchildren. Who knows? What was they're young. Um, they're between 2, 4, 12, and 13. They're already kind of looking at my YouTube channel, going, "What's he up to?" It's granted. So it was really like, am I going to become weirder? And that was the choice because they were asking me to become weirder. I wasn't sure about Starseeds of Ascension. I didn't really know really well, I don't think I knew that much about it. So I sat with it for 2 weeks and then I thought, you know what, I'm just going to say yes because I think that's the best thing to say. I'm here for it, obviously. I don't think I know what I'm doing. So that set me on a very fast learning curve. where I was starting to do transmissions, and that was another aspect of it. Oh, what's this coming through? What's this? In the beginning, I really resisted it. And the first one was a goddess energy in Greece while I was on a writing retreat in Greece. And I thought, I don't think I should be channeling goddesses from Greece or ancient Greece. I don't think I don't have a womb. That was my feeling. I don't have a womb. I shouldn't be doing this. Anyway, I said yes. And that's all I've done. I've said yes. All right. Yes, 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 yes. And in the early days, it was more receiving. Okay, do this, do that. And I was like, okay. As time went on, I realized, look, this is a two-way street. I'm going to talk back and I'm going to ask them, can we do this? What about that? What about it? So these days, it's more of a two-way thing. It's not just a one-way thing. And so that's the start of it, really. It was like alternatives was a big start of service. 6 years Dark Night of the Soul. And then when I came out, it was this level, which I think is a higher level for me in a way, higher vibrational level. I'm more out there, more public, more impacting people. And there's a responsibility with that. I'm going to make sure that, that I'm doing the best I can to help people on their own path. And of course, everyone's got their own unique path. So I'm not saying corralling people going, this is the one and true way. I do work with archangels because I create this sacred space for people in meditation. And so if anybody's connected to archangels, and most people are kind of like archangels, and there's not many people who don't, maybe radical pagans don't like them very much, but I like them. And working with the higher self and all of these lovely, gorgeous energies in the universe that wants to help us. So that's the thing. There's a lot of help around, and most people that I'm helping say, well, we're not really connected to it, and you are, so guide us. So that's what I'm kind of doing, to the point where they get their own. They don't need me anymore, and they're off.
Yeah,
So I'm just a
yeah,
kind of guide, point in the way, I think, and I think I don't feel I'll ever retire, even though this year I officially get a pension from the government. Amazingly, I'm going to get a pension from this year. I am in my 60s, so. Uh,
amazing.
yeah, so, but I don't see a time where I'm ever going to retire, because I see the next 10 years is also very intense, and
Yeah,
people are going to need help waking up, because the world is not changing as fast as we might like it, actually. So that's the impetus. And I'm still going. I'm still getting up in the morning going, okay, I've just put up another one on YouTube called Another World of Work is Possible. It's me talking for 20 minutes on the area of work and shifting work to be more in alignment with heart and mind. So that's my latest track. And then the last
amazing.
two before that were all psychic protection ones. And we need a bit of protection in
Yeah, we
these
do.
day and age.
Yeah. I'm glad you've touched on that, Steve, because you've mentioned that you've got this beautiful connection and relationship with archangels, with your higher self. And we know that in the spiritual community, there's been a lot of infiltration with false light and a lot of deviousness that's gone on. And so it's really important for us to know how to work with energy. And that's been a big part of my journey, is to know how to protect my energy, how to use greater discernment. So spiritual hygiene is more important now than ever before, especially because we have AI, artificial intelligence, and you'll be online a lot because it's how you reach a lot of your people. I'm the same. But coming back to that divine intelligence and the spiritual hygiene that's so necessary these days, how do you keep yourself A, sane because you're so busy,
Yeah.
and be completely connected to having that pristine connection, so that there's a lack of opportunity, let's say, for psychic attack and infiltration?
Yeah, well, being sane, I think I've gone through my questioning of, am I losing my marbles, as they say in England? You say that in Scotland, losing your marbles. Am I losing the plot?
Mhm.
Where am I going with all of this? I've been through that phase, and I think a lot of people go through this phase of questioning. How do I know this is the right path? How do I know this is right for me? How do I know? So I've gone through all that questioning and found my own answers with spiritual hygiene. Um, I came across a clearing healing technique, well, a number of them, but one in particular called spiritual response therapy back in the 1990s, mid 1990s. And it's a technique for clearing the Akashic records. And a lot of people do Akashic records readings, which is great. But actually, a really important part of it is not like who was I in my last lifetime. It's not really important. But there are programs that need clearing. You may have programs of betrayal for 10 lifetimes. You may have been killed for speaking your truth. All of these programs are the ones which is really important. it's not being voyeuristic, going in, going, hey, I was a king in Atlantis, or hey, isn't that wonderful? I mean, yes, there are some useful things there, because when I first went into that method, the woman told me you were a high priestess in Atlantis and you served in Egypt. And I was like, oh, well, if that's true, then there must be some latent gifts or talents that I've developed over these lifetimes. So that's useful to go and go, well, can I have them back, please? It'd be very nice. So the spiritual hygiene I've developed now with my partner, we twice a day do a clearing, morning and evening, and also after any event we do and before any event we do, because people bring in their own
Yeah.
things which they may not be aware of.
Yeah.
And so spiritual hygiene is super important. There's a lot of teachers and channels out there that I think are not really, from the ones I know and I've asked them, they don't really seem to think it's important. And I think it's letting in things. It's a bit like having a house, going, well, I've got a lovely house, but actually there's a window open somewhere. I don't know where it is. Hopefully nobody will get in, but it's not a good idea, because when you start waking up spiritually, you start going from the 3D world, which is this world of rocks are hard and water's wet. If you touch it, you can experience it. I'll believe it when I see it. All of that 3D
Yeah.
stuff,
The world of matter. Yeah.
the world of matter. And
Mhm.
then we start entering the spiritual world, which begins in 4D, which is all of the psychic, astral stuff. And it's wonderful. You can create your reality, begins there. We start doing vision boarding and mantras and bhajans and all this wonderful stuff we do. But on the astral plane, there are different levels of the astral plane. There is the higher astral plane where guides can come through and angels can come through. There's a middle astral plane where we can meet loved ones and pets who've passed over. But there's the lower astral. And the lower astral is places which looks a bit to me like the forest in Avatar. You remember in that film Avatar where he gets lost?
Yeah.
Whenever I've gone there, and I've gone there a couple of times, I'm like, oh my goodness, these strange beings, strange creatures. And also, there are beings there who are a bit stuck. If you imagine someone who's lived a really not pleasant life, died angry, or been engaged in addictions or black magic, they're hanging around low. Even in the other planes, they're not really particularly very high usually. So we have to protect ourselves from that and close off any openings to it and close off any programs that connect us to it and any agreements that connect us to it. So I've developed over time a whole procedure of clearing all the various aspects, because there are various bits which open us up to it. You know, Trauma can open us up to lower stuff. Past life agreements can open us up. Imagine you had an agreement in the Knights Templars, and that they may have been light at one time, then they were a bit dark. So, or maybe you took agreements in the Catholic Church, or all these places that are not really good to have now. You have to destroy them all. Or maybe you have explored the dark, because some of us have explored the dark. I know I have in other lifetimes. To really understand the dark, be able to neutralize them, I've had to be touched by them. In Egypt. Egypt was a very light, dark place, ancient Egypt. Atlantis was light and then dark at the end. Lemuria was very light and then at the end became a bit dark. So this is the nature of the 3D world, ascending 4D world. It's light and dark. It's not all love and light. It's not all angels and
Mhm.
dolphins.
Yeah.
I remember speaking to a couple of people about this, and they absolutely refused to think there was anything dark. It's all angels, it's all light, and there's all love. But that's really kind of denying the possibility. It's like going to Paris and going, everyone is lovely here. Everyone, I'm going to go and hug everyone. They're all lovely. Yes, it's nice to think that way, but it's a bit naive as well.
Absolutely. There's that bit about sort of spiritual and cognitive dissonance within the spiritual community in some realms as well. I love the analogy that you used about the house, because that's often how I talk when I'm working with clients. It's, we need to learn how to work with our own energy field so that we're taking our power back. And like you say, that we can end contracts through all time, space, and dimension. We take our power back. We come into soul mastery. So it's about closing doors firmly, but
Yeah.
also opening the door into this beautiful corridor that's coming. It's absolutely there. It's coming because we've created it. And I believe that many of us have come back from the future, so to speak. And we've left breadcrumbs for ourselves to get back to that higher vibration of what our home should be like, what our planet should be like. So You talk about moving from, as you've touched on there, Steve, moving from the 3D reality through to 4D, through to 5D, and
Yeah.
the template that's there, that golden age that some people talk about. And you've touched on there about the lower, middle, and upper astral. So I talk about shadow frequencies as well, within us. We experience that in the external. So we're moving from the 3D to 5D, which is moving us from the duality and polarity that we have, and that's allowing our soul to grow and evolve and learn. What do you feel and sense when you are creating the 5D reality? What does that feel and look like for you?
Well, yeah. So here we are in this world where all of these realities exist side by side. There are people in 3D reality, and 3D reality is the school of hard knocks,
Mhm.
really. Um, you can learn there. It's a very, very slow learning process. Let's learn about courage, for example. On the battlefield 20, 30 times, being hacked to pieces. Yep, I can learn about courage, but it's not, there's a certain limit to the learning there. Oh, we're on the battlefield again. Oh, wow, wonderful. It's a bit like, or being betrayed. Let's learn about betrayal. And you get that goes on and on and on. It's very slow and, it's like the Titanic
Dense.
turning,
Yeah.
dense, and it's learning through opposition to your light.
Mm.
So it's like going into a gym and everything's like pushing the thing up, It's well, I want to learn about this, so I'll find about the opposite and push against that. So
Yeah.
it's all that. 4D is a liberation. And there are people who are exploring 4D. They're off, doing dancing in the jungles, doing ayahuasca. They're doing, all kinds of ritual. I did shamanic rituals for years. It's exploring the psychic realms. It's opening chakras. It's manifesting, beginning to manifest and all of that. And that's wonderful. But you're in the middle zone where you are more vulnerable to the wonder and also the false light beings. And it's often in the 4D zone that people can start attracting narcissists, these false light beings in the inner planes and also in the outer planes in the world, narcissists. And, it's part of the growth, really. We learn through, want to learn about self love, attract a narcissist. They'll teach you everything by giving you the exact opposite. But then 5D is a shift in vibration. And whereas 4D, our vibration tends to oscillate a bit. We go to a 3D job, we do a 4D, 5D workshop. We go to a 3D work, or we go to a 3D family, and we're always doing this going up and down in 4D. In 5D, we're learning to stabilize in a high frequency and not come down no matter what. No matter what our mother-in-law says, no matter what the boyfriend says, we're staying in a high vibration. No matter what the news is saying, no matter what the world is doing, we stabilize. Now, the world has gone through a big test recently. I mean, 9/11 was a big test, of course. That was when the light increased and also the darkness increased. The darkness went, you know what? We're going to oppose that. We're not going to allow this to come up. Recently, we've been through this global nonsense for a few years, and that's another. The
Mm-hmm.
light's intensifying after 2012 trigger point. The dark is going, we are not allowing that. We're going to control reality. We're going to put all the controls in it. But in 5D, you can walk through this world and really be untouched by it. It's not that you don't have compassion and empathy. I do have a lot of empathy for the people suffering in the world. But for example, when the lockdown was happening, I quite liked social distancing. I didn't mind it, I didn't wear a mask or anything like that because I didn't agree with all that, and I didn't buying into all the fear. But it's really interesting to see it, and finding our own ways to navigate that quite extreme situation. So here we are now. I've got a 3D. Most of my family are pretty 3D, navigating them, loving them, being in the world where, even in Brighton, which is pretty alternative, it's kind of a 3D, 4D place. I think there's not a lot of 5D going on, little bits of people here and there. To find a really truly 5D place is a joy and a miracle. There are places in the world holding a high vibration, but there are also places holding a very low vibration. If you go in the Middle East, there are places holding very, very low vibration. Afghanistan is not holding a very high vibration right now. Russia is not holding a high vibration right now. There are places not holding a high vibration, and there are places which are holding high vibration. Uh, Russia's an interesting one because I think Russia even though it's holding this lower frequency at the moment, there's a great potential for this breakthrough there in Russia, I think, for a light to break through. It has to go through a whole initiation corridor before the light, because there's a lot of light underneath, but it's like not apparent because it's kind of hidden.
Yeah,
In
yeah,
America, there's a lot of light places, but America's a very interesting one because America's probably a pretty extreme version of light and dark. You've got so much light there and so much dark there. You know, that's really side by side in
yeah,
America.
yeah.
In England and Scotland, it's kind of a bit nicer. We like just having a cup of tea and not getting too upset over the news, you know. Maybe in Scotland you get a bit more upset. I don't know. In England, we kind of don't get so upset about the news. You know, we just I do look at the newspapers, just the headlines, just to see what's going on in the world, but I don't pay too much attention to it. 5D to me is the place where we consistently create miracles in this ascending world now,
Hmm.
which means we can create the life we want to create. I always had the idea that I want my working life to be a holiday, every day to be a holiday. So I moved by the sea, which is my kind of holiday place. And now kind of work is kind of holiday like, you know, I'm my own boss, which is very, very nice. Money, that all of these areas become um, you become a kind of mastery in money. Money was a tricky one for a while, but I kind of got a handle on that. Work, relationships, health. There are all these different areas, and all of them, when you really start moving to 5D, should start to all come together in a high light. So, you know, as you get older, as I said, I'm getting my pension this year, I think. But my body, it creaks here and there, but it's actually pretty good. It's holding up pretty well. I'm able to go running still, go out running, you know, and stuff like
Amazing.
that,
Yeah, amazing.
and keep up with the grandkids running around the playground after them. I can still do that. So yeah. So, but of course, the new Earth is further away. The planet itself is going to take decades to start shifting because there's a lot of cleaning up to do, and a lot of things have to be changed. Politics, financial institutions, military institutions, all those take time to transform. But we, as individuals, can move into 5D quite quickly and live in this world
Yeah.
and live in a very different flow of light.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you've touched on that as well, because we're stepping back into our power and understanding that these systems that we maybe have been thinking about for a long time, that we may be part of, but they are external to us. We are the system. We create our reality. We co-create our reality. And I guess what you're describing, what I'm visualizing here in my mind as I'm hearing you speaking, is that there's no getting around it. We have to go through it. We have to go through the 3D bit, the dark night of the soul, the 4D bit, and then we awakening into all the possibilities that are available through our heart consciousness, to create a consciousness field, a frequency here on this planet that's stabilized, as you beautifully describe, where we're all staying in the center of our heart so that we don't get pulled out of our heart, that we can stay here without being triggered by everything that's going on round about.
Yeah, that's a good word, triggered, because in 3D to 4D, triggering happens all the time. And if we're triggered by something, we know, oh, there's some work there. I feel that
Yeah,
there, or I feel it
yeah,
there, or I feel it there. Then we know there's work to be done, which is the whole benefit of ascending through 3D and 4D. Is teaching us, oh, I've got a trigger there. Oh, that's upset me. There's something because if there is something, it usually has roots in other lifetimes or bloodlines that we have to clear out of our system. So there's a whole clearing out of being triggered until the point comes where, you know, doesn't upset you anymore. You know, just kind of people are rude on the bus and you go, that's all right. Bless them. You know, it's all right.
yeah,
I'm not triggered
yeah,
by it. Or someone says something on the TV and you go, bless them. They're doing the best they can. That is really this, because you really can manifest your own reality when you're not triggered by anybody else. Because when you're triggered by institutions or people or groups, then you are being pulled into drama, into
yeah,
upset. Your vibration comes down.
yeah,
And so the moment you're not triggered is the moment you start having an impact on others around you. You start like, you know, I had a lot of clearing out to do. I still do clear out some things, but I can now impact a group of people because I've largely done a lot of the clearing out or quite a
yeah.
bit of it. And that's what we do. If you want to clear something, go and teach it or go and be
Mhm.
public. Then everything's accelerated. You probably know, Kelly, all of the
Yes.
lessons will be accelerated. When I started teaching about money, all of the lessons around money and abundance came
Yep.
zooming up
Yep.
and to be cleared. So,
Yeah.
and then I wrote a book about money way back, and that helped. And I did workshops on money. Now, money's not an issue anymore. I don't feel triggered by anything. I know people around me are in the spiritual business and they get triggered by the HMRC, the tax office. And
Mhm.
I go, bless them, bless the tax office, bless them. Hopefully
Yeah.
I can keep on as much of my own money but don't let it go. But, I want to keep as
Yeah,
much on
keep it
it,
in
but
the
bless them.
hands of the people that are going to do good in the world.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I guess what you're describing is what I talk about is staying in 0 point, staying in that still point of the heart and not allowing yourself to be pulled out. And, when you think, what I love about this journey, Steve, is I call triggerings awakenings as well. Because just when I think I've got something sussed and I think I've nailed that, then in comes the challenge. It's like, oh, the universe is saying, have you really?
Yeah, I know.
And
Yeah.
a recent example was I was just about to, I'd prepared this beautiful 5 day experience. It was free. It was, in service because I wanted to do it. And I called it energetic alignment. And it was all about what we've just been talking about, staying in your heart, getting back in there, blah, 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 blah. And what came right at the start of that experience was my gran became very, very ill. And there were a lot of things going on with her care that were not so good. And I also had, let's say, someone who has appeared in my life, as I've now learned over many lifetimes, because I sat in meditation and really asked for some answers. I suppose I hadn't really been ready to hear it before then. And there were all these contracts and cords and attachments still to the soul between her and I. And she was really triggering me before I was, here's me going to, I'm sitting in my mastery, going to be teaching all of you about staying in energetic alignment. And here am I being pushed out of my heart, like you would pushed and pulled, like you would not believe, tested on every level. And what I decided to do was at the start of that 5 day experience was speak about the reality of that and the realness of that, because
Mm,
none of us, or very few of us, I believe, are enlightened masters here. We are
yeah.
here to have the earthly experience and to learn the soul lessons. And I really do feel that, when you get into ego, back into the 3D of, oh, I've got that nailed, I've got that system. Here comes the universe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you had experiences like that yourself?
Yeah, I think when I was at Alternatives, I saw one or two spiritual teachers fall off the pedestal. Their ego got the better of them. They thought, I've sussed it, I'm here, I'm sorted, and then something happened and they fell off.
Yeah.
I mean, with that, it's usually money, sex, power, status, ego
Mhm.
stuff. It's usually that what pulls them
Yeah.
up. So it was a good lesson watching all of this stuff. And I remember Wayne Dyer saying, if you think you're enlightened, go spend some time with your family. I know you're a mother of three. I've got two children and four grandchildren.
I've got two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it two?
Yeah. Two
Or was
girls.
it
Yeah.
two girls? Oh, two girls.
Yeah.
And so a lot of my single
Right.
friends, it's very prevalent in the single spiritual community where single people go, I'm sorted, I'm mastery, I've got it sorted. But family holds a different dynamic.
Yep.
Children are demanding, mother, give me my breakfast. Mother,
Yep.
where are you? Or grandchildren come down demanding, entertain us. We want to be entertained, and so that's good. That's quite good to have the family bit. Yes, in India, for example, if you wanted to become enlightened, you go off in after your family experience, go off into the mountains. But usually they say have the family experience and then try for enlightenment. I mean, but now we don't have to do that. We can go for spiritual awakening. Obviously, when we're in the family, we haven't got time to wait till we're
Yeah.
60s to go,
No.
oh, now I'll go off to the mountain. We're doing it. I woke up when my kids were 9 and 13. It wasn't very inconvenient, like they didn't want me to go off and do what I was doing. So yeah, go your family there's always going to be challenges. Family is a big challenge. There's always going to be challenges. If you think you're enlightened, you're probably not. I don't think of myself as enlightened. I don't think of
Yeah.
myself as a master. I think of myself, I'm still learning. It's like, hey, I'm
Mastering.
still, yeah, mastering
Mastering.
and helping, mastering and helping. I'm on my
Yep.
learning curve, and a lot of star seeds who are who are serving, because a lot of people come to serve, they're
Yeah.
still learning. The learning doesn't stop,
Yeah.
but
Absolutely.
serving increases learning, as I kind of
Yeah.
mentioned before.
Yeah.
Um, when I thought I was at a certain level of, hey, I'm really got it sussed. At that moment, a narcissist came in my life,
Mm-hmm.
and oh my God, I had 2 years of it, and it was really intense. And they left now, but I had my experience. Oh, I mean, I've had two narcissists in my life, and both of them were very intense. One was a boss, and one was a romantic connection, and they taught me, wow, they are
Mm-hmm.
really like. There's people like that. I
Yeah.
didn't know. And
Yeah.
so I had to have the experience because a lot of people come to me with narcissistic partners and I wouldn't have known. So
Yeah.
now I know, oh, I understand what you
Yeah.
mean by narcissist.
Yeah.
So it doesn't stop, really. The growth doesn't stop. It may shift from one area. I think I was growing a lot of difficulty. My main difficulty is work and money was very, very difficult, really, for a
Mm-hmm.
while.
Mm-hmm.
That shifted. And then there are other areas where you might get a little challenge, you know. So yeah, we don't stop. I don't think it's going to stop. I'm not going to stop working, not going to stop growing till I'm, you know, in my late 90s when I'm about to leave, probably.
Awesome. I love it. Now, you mentioned that you've written a book. You've written 6 books, I believe, Steve. Is that right?
Something like that. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
and your spiritual entrepreneur book is a beautiful book. I read that
Oh yeah, got
quite
it here.
recently. I think I read that book.
Yeah.
I've actually given out on loan to someone. When you
Oh,
mentioned this before the call, I'm thinking, who did I give that book to again?
get it back.
And yeah, I want it back. And you've also just republished Joy at Work. So
Yeah.
I would love you to share whatever you would like to share about these books because there are so many golden nuggets in the Spiritual Entrepreneur book. It would have undoubtedly had an impact on me when I read it too. And then the joy at work, there are so many people in the world. You're talking about narcissists. I've met many narcissists through work, through my
All
work,
right. Yeah.
working career. And that has been very triggering yet awakening for me because we need these experiences so that we know who we are, so we know where our station point is, what our moral compass is, what our emotional integrity is, and all of that. And it can be really difficult sometimes when you're having the life sucked out of what you're perceiving to the life sucked out of you to find your joy in the entrepreneurial world, in your work. What are the biggest lessons that you've learned along the way? What have you put into your book so that you can share with others?
Well, on what the work front, because I started off working in a bank for 10 years in the City of London, and lots of narcissistic. I didn't date them, or they weren't directly involved with me, but I saw them around. 10 years in the City of London, pretty dry, difficult, and then 10 years in local government. So I spent 20 years in normal work, and basically it was meaninglessness.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of suffering of emptiness, and what am I here to do? Confusion and depression. I suffered
Yeah.
depression in my mid 20s. And it was really, I didn't know, but I'm feeling lost. I didn't really have the wording for it, but I felt lost. And then another 10 years in another environment, which was a little bit better, but still had a lot of challenges to it. I had no idea that work could be a vehicle for my own inner potential or my own gifts. Or, most workplaces not interested in your gifts. They're interested in putting you in a box and
Mm-hmm.
saying, make us money in that box,
Yeah.
and you're a specialist there or there or there. And it doesn't really liberate our potential. So when I was in the bank in the city, if someone has said to me, you're going to be a spiritual coach, mentor, author, YouTuber, you know, channeler, all of this stuff, I'd have gone, are you mad? Are you mad? I used to read a lot of books, kind of fantasy sci-fi books, going, wouldn't it be great if the world was different? But I never believed I could write or do anything. And I believe my future self is, we do go back and we do speak. There was a part of me, but not listening to it. I'm just, no, that's not me. But when we take the journey, and to take the journey is courage, because we have to go, I'm not putting up with this anymore. So shifting from whatever work you did before to this was a courageous step. There was a shift, and there's a journey of, can I do it? Am I able to do it? Am I resourceful enough? Do I have the capacity, capability? Do I have enough self-worth? All of this stuff that goes on and on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we start doing it and going, oh, I can do it. Well, I can do it. It's a bit like in the Matrix. I can do kung fu, or I can fly a helicopter, that thing. So by doing the journey, following the heart and soul, and listening to intuition and the impulses, and just going, even if it feels a bit mad, you can find work which is much more in line with your core values, which liberates you. And so now work for me is miracle. It's a miracle zone, really. And I shifted into the entrepreneur. I became eventually I did it part time in my late 40s, early 50s, but then full time the last several years. And so I wrote the book, The Spiritual Entrepreneur, really as a way of combining spiritual principles of manifestation and being in the flow and intuition and vision and all of that with practical business ideas around branding. Because branding, which sounds incredibly boring, is important from an energetic point of view, because the energy of your brand, if it's off, will just throw everything out. So there's lots
Yeah.
of combining and weaving practical with the energetic. You got to think intuitively, imaginatively, creatively, and strategically. You got to do all of these things. If you do, you'll find your business will start to take off. If you don't, you'll find it will be stuck and it's not working. There's something missing. So I've just kind of put all the ingredients, which I think of for a successful business, which I've learned over 13 years of being a director of a spiritual organization and 7 years running my own business. And actually, I helped in other spiritual organizations in various consulting capacities. So I've kind of brought it all in and go, and even from the things I've learned that went wrong. I worked in one spiritual organization as a consultant, and they were doing everything wrong. And they wanted me to come in and help them, but they didn't want me to tell them what to do. It's kind of a really interesting thing.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us what to do, but don't tell us what to do because we know, but tell us what to do. But no, we don't want. It was all this kind of weird dance that went on for a while, and I gave them what I thought I could give them, and I left. And actually, they only really implemented my ideas more fully when I left. They went, "Oh, he's gone now. All right, we'll take on his ideas and we'll do it." And that's fine. They did it, but they resisted, and that's fine. So I've learned by what hasn't worked as much as by what has worked. And I do think there's someone said it somewhere that said, learn by your own mistakes, the small ones, but let other people make the big mistakes and learn from them. You don't have to make the big mistakes. There's plenty of people making the big mistakes, And I've seen a few people make dreadful mistakes around bankruptcy and screwing their companies over and all kinds of things. And I'm like, they screwed up their company brilliantly. I've got to mention that because there may be people where it's a complete blind spot and they're going to go in. And I
Yeah.
do mention in the book a number of blind spots that you have to be aware of, because if you're not aware of these blind spots, you might find yourself going down a route that you don't want to go down. So they're the two books, Joy at Work and Spiritual Entrepreneur, are the latest two.
Amazing.
And because I like practical spirituality as much as all of the meditations I do, which is kind of very cosmic, I do think that we should be transforming our life. And the proof is our life transforming or not? If
Yeah.
it is, then you're on the right track. If
Yeah.
it's not, then there's more work
Yeah.
to be done.
Well, that's it. We can stay in the woo all the time, but actually, there's got to be the do as well. There's got to be the bringing it down. I call it the castles in the sky, grounding them into reality,
Yeah.
anchoring it in, because that's how we create this new template, isn't it? We show people how it's done. And it's really interesting because we have got very similar aspects, overlaps in our life, because I worked in the bank, my whole family are bankers.
All right.
Um, then the corporate route for me was education. And when you were talking there about, they took on my ideas, you had that interesting dynamic with them. They took on my ideas once I'd left. Has that often shown up in your life? Have you often found that you're a little bit ahead of your time, so to speak, like you're the way shower, that people aren't quite ready at the same time as you? And has that been a bit of a frustrating process?
One I've had to learn really, because I would earlier on go, why are you not getting this? You should be getting it. But now I realize that you don't have to be 10 steps ahead of everyone. In fact, you should only be a few steps. If you're too far ahead, they won't get you. And so you have to gauge the audience to go, where are they? Oh, let me be 3 steps ahead of them. So they'll get, oh, that's a great idea. If I'm 10 steps ahead of them, they'll go, what? So I remember at Alternatives, one day I said something to one of my co-directors, and he said to me, I remember it clearly, he said, I've got no idea what you're talking about, but I trust you. And I realized I was just speaking way, way out of his zone. So it's important to know who you're talking to, engage the audience, and then speak to them, their challenges, their dreams, their values, what their familiarity zone or their comfort zone is. So, rather than speaking about a new earth, 5D, golden timeline, and they're sitting there going, but we're still struggling with X, and we can't even get there to that place.
Yeah,
So you
yeah,
have to know the odds. Don't be too far ahead. Actually, the best teachers are only a few steps ahead. The best coaches. When I did martial arts, I trained in. I was a fencing coach as well. I trained way back as a fencing coach. And the woman teaching me said the worst teachers are gold medalist, Olympic medalists, because they're too far ahead
yeah,
and they're not interested in teaching beginners. So
yeah.
that's the thing. You can't be too far ahead.
Mhm.
Otherwise, a gold medalist will be teaching people on the Olympic team. They'll not be teaching intermediaries. And it's the same in any path. You have to know where they're at and are you the person for them?
Yeah,
Because for me, I I speak to an audience which is kind of woken up already. They're waking up and woken up. They're not at point zero going,
yeah.
shall I meditate? What's meditation? I'm not interested.
No,
They're not attracted to me because I'm talking about stuff that's way beyond what they're thinking of already. So
yeah,
I'm kind of going into the intermediate zone. That's
yeah,
the zone where I'm at,
yeah.
really.
I love that. And that so speaks to my heart because having been a primary school teacher for 20
Oh,
odd years,
yeah,
it's just been that step ahead. And I loved being as close to the children as possible and looking at the world through their eyes of curiosity, wonderment, innocence. Because if you're talking to primary ones as you would a primary seven, they're just not going to get, they're just going to look
yeah,
at you like, you're quite obscure. So I
yeah.
always try and remember that, and I'm glad that you've reminded us of the importance of having that at the forefront of everything that you do.
Well, like, can I say that my daughter, who has got no idea what I'm doing, and she says, Dad, what are you up to? And I always say, I'm up to weird shit. And she goes, Oh, okay. Because I can't tell her. She would
Yeah.
just, and then one day she insisted on finding out what I was up to. And my partner told her, and she went, Oh, she went like that. So I went, Yeah, exactly. Weird shit.
Totally relate.
Yeah, leave it there. Let's leave it at
Totally
weird shit.
relate. Yeah, I've been the black sheep in my family for a long time. People just are like, is she just doing her thing? Okay. None of my friends ask about my podcast or really about my work because they're just like, okay, you just do you in your wee bubble and come and see us every now and again. And I love it. Um, you have got so many offerings to help humanity, Steve, and we can't underplay the impact that, the work that you're creating, that you're here to create to show that way will be having on humanity. So you've got your YouTube channel, but you still somehow, in between writing books, I just learned today, as I told you before we came on this episode, that you have a podcast as well. So I must go and listen to your podcast. Is that you interviewing other souls? Yeah.
Yeah, various people on all kinds of quirky, weird shit things. And yeah, so I do that. What else do I do? I do one-to-one sessions, although I'm really fully booked up with that. I do webinars, ongoing webinars, 2 a month on various different subjects. If people want to come and listen to more of my weird shit, come and listen to my webinars.
Would
And
highly
there's
recommend it.
meditations on there as well, and transmissions and all kinds of things. So yeah, it's blending the practical and the spiritual. So that's what I'm up for, really.
And can we finish as well? Because I was really excited last year after not being able, we've touched on obviously the experience of lockdown, and I wasn't easy with any of that either. I didn't buy into any of it. I know that I respect everybody's decisions, individual decisions, but let's just say that we were a family that did not go along with the narrative at all. Um, and so I was very relieved to get out and about again and visited Glastonbury for the first
Oh
time
yeah.
last year. And I had been so desperate to go because it was somewhere that I had done a lot of work etherically, and because I really resonated with that being the heart chakra of the planet.
Hmm.
And so actually physically visiting was amazing. And someone who I work very closely with, her name's Stella Fairbairn. She's just the most incredible and beautiful soul, her and her beloved John. Um, she had said to me at the time, if you're going to Glastonbury, don't stay in the centre of Glastonbury because you are so open. You're walking into the middle of a battlefield. She was
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
Kelly, you will lose your mind. And I knew exactly what she meant when I arrived there because it was literally like walking into a different reality. I, I
yeah.
mean, Avalon, the Avalonian energy was just incredible. But we chose to stay in a place called Godney, just outside of Glastonbury, a beautiful place called the Sheppey, and I would highly recommend it to anybody. And we travelled into just a few kilometres each day into Glastonbury. But it was like some people had completely lost their minds. It was like some people had gone there for the festival and maybe never left
They
30
never
years
came
ago.
out. No.
It's like, wow. But there was such so many experiences. I'll not have time to share them here today, Steve, but going up to the Tor, to St. Michael's Tower and the Orchard and experiencing just the energy there was unbelievable. And
Yeah.
I know that that'll be a place that you've visited many times, and I know that you've held retreats and things there. What does Glastonbury hold for you? What does that mean to you visiting there and doing work there?
I've been going there for about 25 years. Practically most years I've been going there. I run retreats there twice a year. And the town itself is pretty 4D. It's full of the astral magic, hundreds of crystal shops, hundreds of shamanic practitioners, witches walking down the high street. It's like you are in a very strange bubble, but the land is magical. Chalice Gardens has got 5D energy there, I think.
Yeah, it
The
really
Tor has
does.
got some 5D energy. Wiriel Hill's got 5D energy. The Abbey's got 5D energy. There are these sacred spots around, but the people are mixed. You get
Yeah,
a whole range of people, and some of the people there are pretty lost. They're looking for something, they're lost, they're wounded. So it's a mixture, and I think it reflects the heart chakra of the world, really, where there's a kind of mixture of 5D and 4D going on in the world, and woundedness. It's a kind of whole gamut. But certainly, if you love crystals, go there. I mean, I go to Stone Age. There's a shop called Stone. I get all my rings and
yeah.
pendants and bracelets and everything there.
Well, Stephen
If
was
you met,
having my husband Stephen. He was having to
yeah,
drag me out the crystal shops.
yeah. Apparently, if you go to Stone Age and mention my name, they'll give you a 20% discount, apparently.
Oh, must try that next time.
Yeah, try that. Stone Age is probably the best shop for expensive but beautiful stuff there.
Yeah.
So it's got a great history of pre-Celtic, pre the Druids were, before the Druids were there, the tour was being used. There's a labyrinth which is pre-Druidic. The Druids were there using it, using the tour for ceremonies. There probably was a stone circle there somewhere on the tour. Some people think the top, but maybe wasn't the top. Maybe it was kind of part down. We're not sure exactly. The gardens have a whole history of spirituality. There's a brilliant esoteric writer called Dion Fortune who lived
Hmm.
right by the garden. Do you know her, Dion Fortune?
And I've heard of her. I've not read any of her
Oh,
stuff.
her books are written in the 1920s to 1940s. A brilliant esoteric occultist doing kind of the 5D stuff back in the 1920s. So I recommend her writings. They are very quaint 1920s, 30s, but I think there's got a lot of golden nuggets in there. She was there. There's been a lot of there's somebody on before Chaliswell Gardens was there. There was somebody owned the land who were doing all kinds of sacred pageants there. Alice Buckton, I think her name was. When she died, it was bought by the trust who owns Chaliswell. The guy who founded the gardens was an intelligence officer in World War II. He founded the 1 minute silence in World War II. He went to Churchill and persuaded Churchill to do this around the empire.
Yeah.
And apparently, that 1 minute for peace was a very potent prayer. Millions of people praying for peace was really powerful. He had a vision of finding the Holy Grail. He did actually find it, but it may not be the Holy Grail because it doesn't look like it was probably old enough, But they found a bowl probably about 1,000 years old from his vision. It's a whole story. It's still there in the gardens in the retreat house. There's lots of stories.
Yeah. Yeah.
Joseph of Arimathea was there,
Mhm.
quite probably in the setting up the first Christian colony in England, quite probably when the Romans were still here. So there's a whole range of stuff, going on.
It's truly magical, isn't it?
Yeah,
So I must revisit. You're just taking me, you're transporting me back there. I'm like, oh, I really want to go back. It's just such a magical, magical place. Steve, I have loved this conversation. It's just been so wonderful to have you on and
thank
hear
you.
you sharing all of your learned wisdom, And again, I just want to thank you for the impact that you've had on me, for we'll look to people. It's not that we put people on pedestals and guru status or anything like that. You would never ever want people to think that of you anyway, but it's knowing the power that you hold so lovingly with people that you've never even met. That's the power of the work. It's that ripple effect of showing people the way to have the courage to step out, take that leap of faith, to do the weird shit, just be truly authentically you. And look where it's look where it takes you.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing.
And
Absolutely
now I'm going
amazing.
all around the world doing stuff, England, Ireland, maybe Bulgaria will happen, maybe Spain, maybe America. We'll see. Maybe Mexico. Getting invites now. It's quite nice to be
Yeah.
invited. I'll see
Well,
where I
as you
go.
say, you're not retiring anytime soon, so there's loads more to come.
Yeah. More weird shit.
More weird shit. I'll be all over it. Oh, thank you so much again, Steve. And I would love to have you back sometime. Thank you. I'm going to check out your own podcast as well, and I'm going to drop all your links down below. So everybody that's been listening and watching today, please check out Steve's work. You'll know what I mean by the beautiful, beautiful work that this man does and he creates. So thank you once again, Steve, and take care. Bye,
Thanks, Kelly.
everyone.
Bye.